Italy had other notable cases of homicide in the same period as the Kircher murder, even if they didn't make global headlines. In one widely covered murder, in March 2006, near the city of Parma, a bricklayer named Mario Alessi was convicted for the death of a 17-month-old toddler. And the same Alessi also plays a part in our story. Several years later, he will say that in prison, Rudy confided in him, saying that he had entered the house on Via della Pergola with a black friend who was the real murderer. Meredith inadvertently wounded herself in the neck with a knife, and Rudy's accomplice decided to kill her. Otherwise, Alessi says, Rudy told him, "She'll make us rot in prison." Alessi told magistrates that Rudy said that boy kept hitting her until Meredith died. He also claimed that another inmate, Antonio De Cesare, was present when he shared these secrets. Rudy would deny everything before the magistrate.
Lei della vicenda processuale.
Have you spoken to us about your legal case with Alessi?
This is something I want to make clear. I want to be categorical. And I want to say that neither with Mr. Alessi nor with the presence of any other people.
Like, for example, De Cesare.
With this De Cesare, I have never spoken about my trial. Never. We spoke about everything else except my trial.
In a letter addressed to his lawyers, Rudy speaks of Alessi as, quote, "stinking filth, a sick and twisted mind, a monster who took the life of a human angel. I have never confided in this filthy being. The Perugia murder is a story riddled with mythomaniacs, liars, and impostors. Take the story of Luciano Aviello. He is a former member of the Camorra, the infamous Naples mob syndicate, and he was in prison with Raffaele. On March 31st, 2010, he made a shocking revelation to Amanda Knox's lawyers. It was my brother who killed Meredith. He confessed it to me. But Aviello later denied everything. He claimed that Raffaele and Amanda's lawyers had promised him 30,000 euros to lie, money that would have been used for a very specific purpose. The prisoner explains this to the magistrates while sketching a portrait of Raffaele.
Raffaele never offended me. He treated me as I felt psychologically. A woman.
Aviello, a convicted mob criminal, tells lawyers that Raffaele treated him like a woman and that the money promised to him would have allowed him to have a sex change operation.
The help of Raffaele's father, the one who would then help me, because I have nothing financially. That was my wish. I help you, you help me.
I help you, you help me. And there was also a deeper reason why the former Camorra member wanted to help Raffaele.
A form of relationship was born, but it was limited. I could feel it was this way. Something so strong.
So you fell in love. Can we say that?
Yes.
He fell in love.
Aviello was charged with slander, though the charges would eventually be dropped, joining the long list of made-up stories to speculation, innuendo, rantings and ravings that would plague this entire affair. And it all revolves around of an English woman that was cut short, at the age of just 23. This final episode is dedicated to Meredith.
Murder in Perugia, an exclusive 7-part podcast series by investigative journalist Antonio Giovane. Episode 7, Meredith.
And she told me then when Amanda got a job in a bar.
It's November 7th, 5 days after the murder, and Arlene Kercher stands before a judge to tell the story of her daughter's life. Mads, as friends and family called her, made sure to take Amanda around, to show her Perugia just after she'd arrived. Meredith called her mother often to ask how her dialysis went. The last time was the day before the murder, when her daughter told her how she was getting ready for a Halloween party.
The Wednesday before she died.
Yes.
Talking about they were all going to this Halloween party, and they were going around to a friend's house, and they were going to all get dressed up in the costume.
Arlene had heard about the crime on television, where there was talk of an English girl found dead in an apartment in Italy. She had called Stephanie, her eldest daughter, who in turn had tried to call Meredith, leaving a message on the answering machine. It ended with, "I love you." Shortly after, her father John, whom Arlene had divorced 10 years earlier, received a phone call from a reporter. "The girl who died in Italy," the reporter told him, "is your daughter, Mr. Kircher." The Kircher family stays up all night in front of the television in their home in Croydon, South London, watching images of Meredith scroll by. When a photo of the girl in a Halloween costume appears, Stephanie tells her mother, "That's not Meredith, Mum." Arlene, however, strokes Stephanie's hair and tells her that yes, that is Meredith. The Kircher family flies to Italy, speaks with the police, and takes refuge in a hotel. Then they head to the mortuary. And Meredith? She reads, loves ballet, and practiced karate when she was younger. She wants to become a journalist or work for the European Union. She does a few odd jobs, bartending, working as a hostess to promote Lynx products. In 2004, she even appeared in a music video. In Christian Leontius' song Some Say, you can see Meredith several times, walking down some stairs, entering a door, and then in a close-up. Meredith is witty and has a sense of irony, and she loves Italy. She first visited when she was just a year old. Her parents took her to the coastal city of Rimini, and they returned there after Meredith turned 8. She and her sister Stephanie remember the Italian waiters handing the menus to them first, before the adults. She was amazed by the process of cooking pizza in wood-fired ovens. At 14, she chose to study Italian in high school and continued at the University of Leeds. She went to Naples on an exchange trip. She visited the Amalfi Coast, Monte Cassino, Rome, where she saw the Vatican, the Colosseum, the Roman Forum. She tossed the ritual coin in the Trevi fountain because tradition dictates that if you do so, you'll return to Rome. She visited Pompeii and the royal palace of Caserta. When they had to leave, her classmates were in tears. Meredith wasn't. On the contrary, she smiled. "I know Italy will always be a part of my life," she tells her teacher. "I'm not sad because when I grow up, I know I'll live here." In 2007, she decides to spend the whole year in Italy. She has 3 options: Rome, Milan, and Perugia. She chooses Perugia. She's in love with its medieval neighborhood, and she thinks it's easier to make friends in a small city than in a big one. At the end of August, she checks into a hotel for a few days. Then she calls her father. "You know," she says, "I found a room in a cottage. 2 Italians, Laura and Filomena, already live there. Another young woman, an American, will come to live here later." This is how Filomena remembers Meredith.
Io e Meredith parlavamo molto di moda.
Meredith and I talked a lot about fashion and makeup, but mostly about clothes. She said to me, "I bought the mask for tonight, can I show it to you?" "Of course," I said. Then she took out the cape she had bought and some false teeth to play the vampire.
Dei denti finti per fare il vampiro.
Meredith is having fun in Perugia, going to clubs, making friends, and starting a relationship with Giacomo, the boy who lives downstairs. When the Kircher family reaches the mortuary, her father, John, is unable to enter. He had last seen his daughter 2 weeks earlier in a small restaurant in Croydon when she'd returned for a visit. She was laughing and happy, he would later recount in a book. "I wanted that to be the memory that would stay in my mind forever." So, standing before Meredith's body, her mother, Arlene, leans over her daughter and says, "Your father came all the way here to see you, but he doesn't think he'll be able to." The funeral was held in Croydon. Many of those present held white roses. At the end of the ceremony, at St. John the Baptist Church, Meredith's favorite song plays, "With or Without You" by U2.
Davvero questo
This is truly a very important day. Yes, for Raffaele Sollecito, but I also believe for those who strongly believe in justice.
Nella giustizia.
It's March 27th, 2015, and it's over. Italy's Supreme Court of Cassazione, presided over by Gennaro Marasca, revisits the entire procedural process, after all the media hype, which accelerated a frantic search for culprits, the findings of the scientific police, which did not follow the guidelines of the international scientific community, and then the fact that Raffaele, who did not know Rudy, makes any conspiracy between unknown persons legally illogical. And finally, the genetic tests deemed unreliable. The bra clasp, found after 46 days and possibly trampled on. The impossibility of repeating the tests due to the small amount of DNA. The absence of biological traces of Amanda and Raffaele in the murder room or on the victim's body. The testimonies of Curatolo and Quintavalle deemed unreliable. The Conad Market owner had stated that Amanda was wearing a grey coat, an item of clothing the American woman did not own. Despite Deputy Prosecutor Stefano Maria Pinelli's request for a conviction, the defendants were acquitted. Only Amanda was sentenced to 3 years for slander against Patrick Lumumba, a sentence she had already served. As she leaves the building, Sollecito's lawyer Giulia Bongiorno appears triumphant.
Sono passati 8 anni, questo ragazzo
8 years have passed. This boy spent 4 years in prison. He has been subjected to a series of hard judicial proceedings. He has faced them, remember this, with his face held high. You never heard him protest. You never heard him swear. I admire the way Raffaele Sollecito handled this trial with maximum respect for the institutions, even when they did him wrong. He was at home with his father. Look, Raffaele Sollecito's father played a fundamental role in this story. A rock.
Una roccia.
From Sollecito's home in Bisceglie, The Rock comes out to speak to reporters and recounts the family's reactions.
Niente, un lunghissimo abbraccio e un pianto
Well,
dirotto.
a very long hug and some real crying, because it was the only thing we could do for each other at that moment.
But were you confident in this verdict?
Of course, we always believed in it. But if you'll excuse me, given everything we went through, there were also huge doubts hanging
C'erano
over
anche dei
us.
grandissimi dubbi che ci assalivano.
Raffaele would appear at the press conference only later, in a blue suit, reading out well-studied words.
Auguro ad Amanda ogni bene.
I wish Amanda all the best. Now I just want to get back to living and forget everything bad that happened to me. This wound that has been with me for 7 years and 5 months, which is an infinite amount of time, will never heal, unfortunately, because it has dug too deeply into my heart and soul.
Nel mio cuore e nel mio animo.
In Seattle, Amanda appears before the awaiting crowd. She has short hair and no longer has quite the same features as the girl from Perugia. Outside her Seattle home, she wears burgundy pants and a t-shirt. With her new boyfriend beside her voice breaking, she says she is grateful that justice has been served.
I'm so grateful to have my life back. Thank you.
Then they ask about her future.
I don't know. I'm still absorbing the present moment, which is full of joy.
This is a moment filled with joy. She thanks them and starts to leave, but they ask her about her former roommate, and Amanda doesn't shy away.
Meredith was my friend, and she deserved so much in this life. I'm the lucky one. So, thank you. Thank you.
Acquitted. But this, explains the Supreme Court, does not mean they were not there, in the house on Via della Pergola. 4 days after the crime, Amanda accused Patrick Lumumba of killing Meredith, in front of Police Inspector Rita Ficarra. She says she was in the kitchen while Patrick and Meredith were having sex, and that at a certain point she heard Meredith screaming. She adds that she covered her ears. Even in Amanda's memoir, written later, among the many confusing images she brings into focus, there is one. I saw myself curled up in the kitchen, with my hands over my ears, because in my head I heard Meredith screaming. The girl from Seattle makes a point of saying that she has difficulty distinguishing reality from imagination. Then there's the neighbor, Nara Capezzali. We remember her. She described hearing a very loud scream to the police.
Ho sentito un urlo, ma un urlo straziante, che mi ha fatto accapponare la pelle.
But Signora Capezzali's testimony, let's remember, was given only on November 27th, a full 21 days after the memorial in which Amanda spoke of that scream, an account she later recanted. But how did she know about that scream?
I'm so grateful to have my life back. Thank you.
There's only one conclusion. Amanda must have been there in the house on Via della Pergola when Meredith died. And it's not based on impressions, suggestions, external influences, sensations or preferences. It's all in the ruling. The judge is right that this specific image, Amanda curled up, covering her ears after hearing Meredith scream, is credible. What's more, Amanda is the first to speak about what will be considered the motive for the murder: sex. And if that's the case, it's likely that Raffaele was also in that house. It seems unlikely that Raffaele wasn't with her. The judge is right on page 49 of the ruling. Why else, the Supreme Court asks, would Amanda not have called her boyfriend after hearing that scream? Or, why didn't she call him?
I don't know. I'm still absorbing the present moment, which is full of joy. Thank you.
Why didn't she call him after finding the door open? Amanda was in that house, and Raffaele was probably there too. But there's no evidence they participated in the crime. And how can you...
Meredith was my friend.
How can you condemn someone just because they were there? Amanda was there, the judges say, and maybe Raffaele was too.
It left me with a very bitter taste in my mouth. I could call it a wish, in quotation marks, to give the investigation a chance. The idea that Amanda could have been at the crime scene. I wasn't there, I was at my house, but in fact Amanda was also with me that evening.
I was convinced then, at a certain point, I was convinced of a more direct participation, that Amanda was present there and had witnessed the crime.
Fosse presente lì e avesse assistito al delitto.
Pensavo di stare aiutando la polizia.
I thought I was helping the police. In reality, for 5 days I was subjected to over 50 hours of interrogation during the night, and without a lawyer, in a foreign language that I then spoke like a child.
50 ore di interrogatorio.
In 2013, Amanda appealed to the European Court of Human Rights about the treatment she suffered on the night of November 5th to 6th, seeking a total of over 2.7 million euros. 6 years later, the Strasbourg court ruled in her favor on 2 counts. It condemned Italy for the role of interpreter Anna Donnino, which allegedly influenced Amanda's hearing. And it challenged the lack of a lawyer when Giuliano Mignini first spoke to the American woman, a decision the magistrate contests.
Il codice di procedura penale dice:
The Code of Criminal Procedure states that anyone who has information that criminal proceedings are pending against them has the right to appear before the magistrate and make statements on their behalf. If, this is the point of the paragraph, if the magistrate or the investigator contests the facts and informs you of the hypothesis of the crime for which the proceedings are being carried out, it is a real interrogation. Then the person must have a lawyer. But if the magistrate or the investigator does not ask questions, behaves like a notary, you can say what you want. I don't ask you questions. In fact, you are basically repeating what you had said before, and so I thought that I didn't have to call the lawyer because it was a spontaneous
Non ho
statement.
chiamato il difensore perché era una dichiarazione spontanea.
According to the magistrate, therefore, Amanda's statements were spontaneous and there was no need for a lawyer. But the European Court ruled in favor of Amanda, arguing that at the time of the spontaneous statements, the American girl had indeed formally acquired the status of person under investigation, so she should have been assigned a lawyer anyway. However, the judges did not recognize the part regarding inhuman and degrading treatment, the infamous slaps, and psychological pressure, because there was no evidence. Compared to the multi-million euro sum requested, the compensation was peanuts. 18,400 euros, 10,400 euros for moral damages, and 8,000 euros for legal fees. Subsequently, the Perugia Police Detective Squad and prosecutor Mignini sued her for slander. Amanda was acquitted. Despite Trump's support, Amanda decided to vote for Hillary Clinton in the 2016 election. The newly elected President of the United States later said Amanda was disrespectful. 2 years later, her boyfriend, the writer Christopher Robinson, surprises her.
What are you doing? What is that?
I don't know.
Okay, come here.
It looks like a meteorite.
You're kidding me.
The video is from November 2018. It's evening. Christopher films the American girl. He tells her to go out into the garden. The music from Steven Spielberg's E.T. is playing. She looks out and sees something strange and asks, "What is that?" The two go down into the garden. There's a boulder spewing smoke. Christopher kneels down.
Will you stay with me until the last star in the last galaxy burns out, and even after that? Amanda, Meredith, will you marry me?
Yeah. Yes, I will.
The couple is wed and will go on to have 2 children, a daughter, Eureka, born in 2021, and a son, Echo, born in 2023. Over the years, the Seattle woman has told her story in 2 books and a documentary. In August 2025, she co-produced an 8-episode series for Disney Plus called The Twisted Tale of Amanda Knox. She also finally met up with Raffaele again. Back on November 2, 2007, they had planned to go to Gubbio, just north of Perugia. That was obviously cancelled, so 15 years later, in June 2022, they finally made the trip. It was Amanda's idea, coming to Italy with her family, including her mother, Edda. In a photo taken on a street in Gubbio, the former couple looks radiant. Amanda wearing a straw hat, Raffaele with his backpack wrapped around his waist. When they talk, they don't talk about the past, they talk about their most recent interviews.
It's about whether there was an interview of one kind or another, whether a journalist was doing a good job or not, that's all.
The former American student also went to Perugia, where she met her lawyers Luciano Virga and Carlo Dalla Vedova, as well as Don Saulo, the parish priest of the Capanne prison. At the Criminal Justice Festival in Mantua, Amanda had expressed her desire to meet another person as well.
Di recente sto pensando molto al mio pubblico ministero.
Lately, I've been thinking a lot about my prosecutor, Mr. Giuliano Mignini. I've been hoping for a long time to have a face-to-face conversation with him. To me, at 20 years old, unjustly imprisoned and on trial, Giuliano Mignini was a nightmare figure, a monster, a powerful and frightening man who had only one goal: to destroy my life for no reason. And I know that this image of him is wrong. One day I would like to meet the real Giuliano Magnini, and I hope that when that time comes, he too will be able to see that I am not a monster, but I am simply Amanda.
I couldn't have imagined it. And when they told me what she'd said, "Hey, did you hear what Amanda said about wanting to meet you?" Well, I don't know, but usually I am ready to confront people face to face.
Ma io di solito le persone le affronto.
Mignini, who had already met Sollecito during a public debate in Bologna, met privately with Knox in June 2022. The prosecutor would later tell the Daily Telegraph newspaper, "We have different ideas about the trial that involved us, but now I have a good opinion of her." Rudy also said he would like to meet the magistrate. Today, the Ivorian man works as a waiter in a restaurant in Viterbo. He was released from prison in November 2021 after 14 years. That day, he asked only one thing: "Now, forget about me." But justice has not forgotten him. In July 2025, he was indicted after his ex-girlfriend accused him of sexual assault, mistreatment, and battery. Over the years, he never stopped accusing Amanda. "I know the truth, and she knows it too," he said in an interview with the Sun newspaper. But why had he given his friend Giacomo a different reconstruction? He had said, "She wasn't there." Giuliano Mignini shares with me his explanation.
Listen, Rudy was a character made up of lies, but in my opinion there was a problem. Rudy and Amanda knew each other, and at first he tries to save her in some way. Then he realizes that she doesn't do the same for him. This is a hypothesis, and then he reveals what instead.
Ma non lo so, io penso di no, penso che...
Mignini claims that Rudy was attracted to Amanda, and if he said those things to Giacomo, it was because he was trying to defend her. But I have a different question. Rudy could have defended Amanda before the magistrates, the authorities. But why would he lie to his best friend, claiming Amanda had nothing to do with it?
The friend then, well, the friend was actually a police decoy who had been assigned and who would have repeated Rudy's interview.
So he's saying that Rudy imagined that he would talk?
No, he spoke to his friend. This was his friend. So you're not betraying me. In reality, his friend had become a police tool.
But did Rudy imagine that Giacomo would betray him?
I don't know. I don't think so. I don't think he could have imagined that he would sell him out like that. So that means the story that Rudy tells was partially confirmed by the results of the final sentence. Because that sentence says that Amanda was definitely at the scene of the crime. So that's how this story ends.
Quindi questa è la fine del discorso.
L'ultima sentenza, da questo punto di vista, l'ho trovato la sentenza.
From this point of view, I found the last sentence to be a balanced sentence. What it tells us is that there is no evidence available telling us that no one other than Rudy Guede is responsible for Meredith's murder. But there is also no evidence capable of categorically excluding that Guede was alone in that house. Because in reality, Amanda was in that house, she had been there, and thus from this point of view, I believe that the last sentence has recognized that very thin line that, especially at the beginning of this story, saw public opinion split in half like an apple, between those who believed they were innocent and those who believed they were guilty.
Come una mela tra innocentisti e colpevolisti.
Public opinion is divided, says La Repubblica's Carlo Bonini. Whenever I ask for an opinion on the Perugia crime, I rarely get a vague answer. Everyone seems to have a pretty clear idea about Amanda and Raffaele, and whether these two young people are innocent or guilty, the final verdict is a clear reflection of that. Acquitted, yes, but Amanda was there, and perhaps Raffaele too.
La verità non è venuta fuori.
The truth hasn't come out. Rudy told his version of the truth. Others remained silent. Italy hasn't delivered justice. neither to posterity, nor especially to Meredith's family.
Alla famiglia di Meredith.
For La Repubblica's crime reporter Elsa Vinci, the real truth has never come out. And as for Giuliano Mignini, now retired, the final verdict is no less problematic.
Questa sentenza esprime un conflitto di giudicati che io non ho mai visto.
This sentence expresses a conflict of judgments that I have never seen. They attack the investigations, about which they could not say anything because there is already a judgment from the first trial. Then what do? They repeat all the arguments of the appeal judge. They attack the first section of the Supreme Court, violating the judgment of the first section. Then they issue an acquittal, and the Supreme Court cannot acquit. They acquit the two with a perplexing formula. At another point, they annul without recourse. Without recourse. That is done when the defendant dies, when the crime has reached its statute of limitations, which was not the case. Here they say that if we leave it open, the referral judge will have to acquit, while there was already a sentence in the first section that had correctly left it open.
La prima sezione che aveva rinviato correttamente.
The chief prosecutor challenges the annulment without recourse, disputes the acquittal, which is not within the jurisdiction of the Supreme Court. He criticizes the many jurisdictional conflicts and reels off a long list of errors he believes the court committed. I asked Mignini if he sees the final Supreme Court verdict as a defeat for him.
No, nel modo più assoluto.
No, absolutely not, for goodness sake. Unfortunately, however, it was a defeat for Italy.
Purtroppo dell'Italia.
And for Claudio Sebastiani, the Perugia-based reporter who followed the case from day one, the ultimate ruling provides no definitive answer about what happened.
The impression is that however you look at it, a piece is missing. However you look at this murder, a piece is missing. Looking at the depositions, looking at the sentences, cross-referencing them, well, the feeling is that a piece is missing, and that above all, too often we lose sight of the fundamental piece. That is, a young woman who had come to Perugia to study was killed, and the question, by whom, we have a truth that is at most just a partial truth. Una verità che è quantomeno parziale.
Yes, because the center of this story was supposed to be her, Meredith. Instead, it has been overshadowed by the intense glare of the spotlight that has shone and continues to shine on Raffaele Sollecito, Rudy Guede, Patrick Lumumba, and above all, Amanda Knox. The focus is on America's indignation over the Italian judicial system, the lawyers, the judges, the magistrates. During the Kercher family press conferences, Meredith's sister and brothers, Stephanie, Lyle, and John Jr., will always be the ones speaking to the press. Her parents, Arlene and John, who died in 2020, her father after an accident in the street, possibly a mugging, and her mother of COVID, remain in the background. We must accept this verdict, says Stephanie, Meredith's sister, on the day of the Supreme Court ruling. Perhaps we will never know what happened to Meredith that night.
It may be the fact that we don't ever really know what happened that night.
Enduring Love by Ian McEwan was the novel that Meredith was reading in her final days. Police cameras filmed a copy of the book in her room during their first inspection. Among other things, the novel tells the story of a girl who discovers she must die. McEwan writes, "She knew well enough how life would go on without her. The waters would close over her head, her friends would feel sorrow and then recover, a little wiser. And the unrecorded workdays, parties and dinners would tumble onwards."
Murder in Perugia is a podcast by Antonio Giovane, The English language edition is a co-production of One Podcast and World Crunch, with editorial supervision by Anna Silvia Zippel and Jeff Israeli. Production support Paolo Prosperini, Giacomo Aloisi, Emma Albright, Erwan Isanchou, and Laurie Gaucher. Post-production and automated voice matching of Antonio Yovane's English narration by Audio.